أعزائنا المشاهدين، للحصول على الترجمة ما عليكم سوى الضغط على هذا المفتاح، النقاط الثلاث، وبعدها اختيار مفتاح كابشن أو سي وبعدها اختيار اللغة. أما للحاسب الآلي الثابت أو المتحرك الضغط على زر سي أو علامة الترس الموجودة بجانبه واختيار اللغة. شكرا لكم ودمتم سالمين.
Good morning, everyone. Salam alaikum. My name is Bent Jebson, and I'm a surgeon from Sweden, very northern part of Europe, where it's much colder right now than it's here.
مرحبا بكم في قناة معلوماتك. لقاؤنا اليوم مع العالم السويدي البروفيسور الدكتور بنجت ويليام جبسون. التحق البروفيسور بكلية الطب جامعة لوند عام 1966. عمل في العديد من مستشفيات السويد. حاصل على زمالة الإكلينيكية والأبحاث في كلية هارفارد الطبية عام 1977. حاصل على زمالة الإكلينيكية والأبحاث كلية سنسناتي ومستشفى سنسناتي العام سنة 1980. حاصل على الدكتوراه في الجراحة عام 1981. حاصل على التخصص نفس العام. استاذ مساعد في قسم الجراحة عام 1982. استشاري جراحة جامعة لوند ومستشفى لوند عام 1984. عالم زائر في سانت أنطونيو باريس عام 1988. حاصل على المقعد الاحترافي بالجراحة عام 1996. حاصل على العديد من العضويات، منها مجتمع الجراحين السويدي عام 1981. جمعية الجراحين الأوروبية. عضو مؤسس مجتمع الجراحين الأوروبي لأبحاث الجراحة. حاصل على العديد من الجوائز، منها أحسن أستاذ طبي من جامعة لوند عام 2014. حاصل على جائزة إنجاز مدى الحياة عام 2016. عضو فخري في مجتمع الجراحين السويدي عام 2017. لديه 320 بحث طبي منشور عن الكبد، التمثيل الغذائي، جراحة السرطان، بكتيريا الأمعاء. وإليكم اللقاء.
And I'm here as an external examiner at the medical school for the time being. I will tell you a little bit about what I've been doing research-wise since many years. And actually, you may not know, but we have got a new organ in the body. It's not often that we find a new organ in the body. We know all organs since many, many years. But actually, we have a new organ that we are starting to explore. And that is all the bacteria that are in the gut. You know, out of our body weight, we have about 1 kilo of bacteria that are mostly residing in the small and in the large intestine. And before, it was thought that this was just something transported out of the body when we went to the toilet. But it seems that many functions in the body is actually dependent on an interplay between our gut bacteria and the bowel wall. And in modern life, these things have often changed, and that's why people are not feeling well nowadays. Because we need to live in harmony with our gut bacteria. And our forefathers, they knew how to behave in this respect by not stressing, eating proper diet, and be in harmony with between the outer world and inner world in the gut bacteria. As I said, we have 1 kilo of bacteria, and if you look on the number of microbes, the number of microbes is the same number as you have cells in the body. So you understand that you need to have a good balance between the bacteria in the guts and the rest of the body or cellular system. So we have 10 billion bacteria, and they are thriving in our gut because we feed them with good food, fiber, and even bacteria. If we look into former days, people used to eat food with bacteria because live bacteria was a way of preserving food. to keep it fresh, and especially, I suppose, in a climate that we have in Kuwait, but also in Northern Europe, where I come from. You need bacteria to preserve food. But nowadays we don't need these bacteria to preserve food because we have a refrigerator and other ways of preserving food. So we don't have an intake of bacteria as we used to have before, and that induces many changes in the gut. And also modern style of life is not also good to our internal environment in the gut, because stress will disturb the balance in the gut. You can say that we have a rainforest in our body, and a rainforest works because you have many different plants working in harmony, and many different plants work together. The same thing is in the gut. You need to have many different bacteria that work in a harmonic system, and they interplay with the body, and in that way you feel much better than without. Now the problem is that these bacteria have been disturbed with modern life. The worst offender is, of course, antibiotics. I mean, you need antibiotics to treat infections, but many times we actually overuse the bacteria, and the damage they do to the gut bacteria will take many months to restore again, and during that time the gut may be exposed to other harmful effects. And also we know that stress will have an influence on our gut bacteria, as well as trauma, surgery, and whatever. And those things we need, but maybe we have to think about that maybe we should do it in a way that we do as little harm as possible on our gut bacteria. What is so important about the gut bacteria? Yes, it is because the bacteria lives in harmony with our gut lining. They taper the lining all the way from the mouth all the way to the other end of the gastrointestinal tract for the anus. And there is a constant exchange of information and nutrition between the bacteria and the gut cells itself. And what's happening in the gut is that those bacteria, which are mainly lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, those are the beneficial, the non-harmful bacteria in the gut. They produce many substances that are important for the gut itself, but also for the body in general. And those substances are, for example, products from fermentation, and fermentation of fiber from a plant and from other material. And during fermentation, small substances are released that are of crucial importance for the guts, but also for the body itself. And that must not be disturbed by our modern life. And if you want to maintain a gut bacteria, you should try to live a non-stressful life with good food, with a lot of fiber and lots of fruits and vegetables, because that makes the harmony as good as possible. And for example, in surgery, I work as a surgeon, you very many times upset the balance in the gut bacteria, and the balance is disturbed so that you have an overgrowth and multiplication of a bad bacteria at the expense of a good bacteria. And that balance can be restored by increasing the intake of good bacteria. And that's what we see in this food store. We have many products with bacteria, and those are mainly lactobacilli and bifidobacteria. If you go to the supermarket and look into the milk section, so to say, you will find many yogurts, and they all contain live bacteria of different kinds. And by taking those in, you can restore a balance that is disturbed by not eating proper diet, by stress and other medicine and trauma. But these bacteria are very different. You have as many different strains, types of lactobacilli, that are more than 100, and they are very different from each other. So in order to be sure that you get a proper intake of good bacteria, you need to know exactly what they are composed of. And you will find that many of the products are very unspecific what type of lactobacilli they have. And that makes the product not as good as you would like to do. So you will ask from a supplier, manufacturer of this yogurt, that what bacteria is it in, what quantity, and what effect does it have on the body. Because if you don't have that information, you can't really say that this bacteria is good for you and this is not good for you. And the problem is that the food industry, they don't have any tradition of good research, because they just manufacture food that people eat and feel happy. But if you want to look at the beneficial effect of different foodstuffs, you know more detail what is composed of. So a new era is starting where we require that the food is more very verified what it consists of, and we have to study what effects are on the body by different foodstuffs. So that's a fascinating story where we can maybe replace some of our medicines by different health products that are verified and have a documented effect in the body, and thereby we can be happier and more healthy, and we can reduce the intake of drugs. We need drugs, that's for certain, but maybe we don't need as much as we take in today, because we can reduce it by refining our diet and have a diet which is properly identified and verified what is composed of.
حصل البروفيسور على العديد من المناصب، منها عميد مساعد كلية الطب منذ عام 1999 حتى 2005، رئيس قسم الجراحة جامعة لوند منذ عام 1998 حتى 2014، كبير المسؤولين الطبيين لمستشفيات منطقة سكاني 1990 حتى 1996، معلم ل 23 طالب دكتوراه منذ عام 1985 إلى يومنا هذا.
So these good bacteria that I've talked about have many functions. And you could say that they are part of food that has a function in the body we call functional food. So it's not food only for maintaining our energy and so on, but they also have a special function in the body. And I'll give you some examples of that. So people have been abroad, they are exposed to different diets and maybe different bacteria. So when I'm in Kuwait, I tend to have some disturbance of my gut function, and that can easily be restored if I at the same time eat some good bacteria. I think the same thing will happen if you come from Kuwait to Sweden. You certainly have some problems with your gut function because you're exposed to a different type of diet, different bacteria, and that can easily be restored by an increased intake of good bacteria that will restore the balance. It's all about the balance in the gut. You need to have a balance between the good bacteria and bad bacteria. No one should be able to grow at the expense of the other, because then the body is out of balance and you don't feel well. It has been shown many good examples of this. So there's one study, for example, in Finland, where two Finnair jets were going to south of Greece with Finnish people, tourists, and it's known that if northern Scandinavian people go to the south of Europe, they many times have problems with being exposed to a different type of environment and different bacteria. And to try to protect the gut of these tourists, the tourists in one plane, they got probiotics, they got good bacteria to drink during their time in Greece, and the inhabitants of the other tourists in the other plane, they would act as control, just behave normally. And they could then see that when they came home after 2 weeks in south of Greece, the patients or the people that had taken bacteria, they had much less problems with irregular bowel function than those people taking not taken any specific bacteria. So that's an example where you can use bacteria to get a special effect in the body. Very much the same thing can happen when you have to take antibiotics. Antibiotics is necessary to treat many conditions, and it has saved many lives. But sometimes there is an overuse, and what many people know and feel that after having taken a course of antibiotic therapy, it takes a long time before their gut is restored. And that time can be shortened considerably if you, at the same time you eat antibiotics, you will eat some good bacteria, and then you will feel much better afterwards than without bacteria. And that is usually used. So in Sweden, for example, where I come from, when a doctor prescribes antibiotic, they automatically advise the person to take probiotics, take product yogurt with live bacteria. In that way they reduce the time when they have problems with their gut. And there are many, many more examples of this. This knowledge and research on intestinal bacteria is evolving very rapidly, and what is very hot right now is what happens in early life. That when a baby is newborn, it is sterile. It has no bacteria at all in the intestinal system, and it takes a few weeks to months before the baby has a normal bacterial flora, normal bacterial content in the gut. And during that time they may be exposed to different symptoms, and it knows that once they have established a normal gut bacterial content in the gut, until that time they don't feel well. The time when it takes after delivery you get a normal bacterial content, it varies a lot, and it's known that in many countries that time is very short, and which is good for the baby. They established a normal bacterial content very early on, while in other countries it may take a long time before, and during that time they are exposed to all kinds of problems and irregular bowel movements. That's of course very much dependent on what food you are taking, and if you're taking any products with live bacteria. And what is coming out now is yogurt for a small baby, so they can establish the normal bacterial content in the gut early on in life. Because what we do now, the best thing is of course if you can be breastfed by your mother, but not all children can have that, because the mothers for decent reasons have difficulty in nursing. And that should then be replaced by porridge or milk for the baby, and that milk must be fresh and ideally should have a content of bacteria in order to help the small baby to establish normal bacterial content. And we have those products on the market today, at least in the part of the world I come from. So that's one example of early in life you can establish a good bacterial content in the gut. Then it seems that once you establish the good bacterial content, a balance in the gut, it stays the same all through lifetime. And it is only changed when you change your diet, for example, goes to a different country, go abroad, or treat antibiotics or get sick for some reason and new medication. Then you change the bacterial flora, and it takes time before you establish it again. And during that period, usually you don't feel very well. So it's important that you have a balance, an inner balance, so to say, between good and bad bacteria in the gut, and that is important to stay healthy. Then another hot issue right now is different conditions where they blame a disturbance in the gut bacteria to be involved in the disease process. One is patients that are obese. I don't talk about being overweight. It means that people that are morbidly, they are obese in severe conditions. They do have altered bacteria as composed to a patient or person that has normal weight. That can of course just be secondary, because we have changed your diet in a negative way during a long time, but it's of course appealing to the thinking that maybe you can change the bacterial content of the gut and have a reduction in weight for a patient, and then maybe even be avoiding a surgical procedure which is used now for the severely sick, obese patients. And that would be fantastic if we can just change our diets and add some good bacteria to the patients, and they can start decreasing weight without any other measures. And it is known that some bacteria in the gut, they do have a possibility to increase your consumption of energy. So that means you can actually take in bacteria that are increased consumption, taking food or energy from your body and burn that, and the body itself can sort of reduce weight because gut bacteria, they do the work for you. That would be fantastic, and many scientific projects are underway in different parts of the world. And that's important because the only way today to treat patients with sick overweight is by surgery or by manipulation of a diet, which is good in some extent, but many people have difficulty in changing their diet and their dietary behavior. So if we could then in the future just give live bacteria with specific abilities to increase the energy in the guts, that would be fantastic. That would be a whole new era that starts and help many people with morbid obesity. Thank you.
اشتركوا بالقناة وشاركوا مع من تحبون.